During a family vacation, my husband said he wanted a divorce, so I went home alone. Now he's calling me constantly. I'll never forget the moment my world shifted. It was late in the afternoon, right as the sun began to dip beneath the horizon, casting a dusky glow over the beach. I was watching our daughter, Molly, splash in the waves, laughing as she chased a small crab scuttling back to the sea. We were here for a family vacation, a much-needed escape to get us away from the routine. Little did I know, this escape would be anything but peaceful. As I stood by the water's edge, my husband, Jake, walked up beside me. He was quiet, his eyes set somewhere in the distance, but I didn't think much of it. He'd been like that the past few days, quiet, brooding. I figured it was just work stress. I wanted to believe that, anyway. "Can we talk?" he said suddenly, pulling me from my thoughts. I could hear the tension in his voice, but I brushed it off. It was Jake, after all, we'd been together for 12 years. Whatever it was, I could handle it. "Sure." I tried to sound calm, though something in his tone made my heart race. He took a deep breath, eyes fixed on the horizon. "I don't know how to say this, so I'll just come out with it." His voice was tight, almost sad. I watched his profile, noticing lines on his face I hadn't seen before. Had he always looked so tired? "What's wrong?" I whispered, a growing dread settling in my stomach. I think we should get a divorce, Emily." There it was. Blunt, sharp, like a punch straight to the gut. I staggered back, almost as if I'd been physically struck. The word echoed in my mind, divorce. Jake. The man who had held my hand through thick and thin, the father of my child, my partner for over a decade, wanted to leave me. "What?" My voice was barely a whisper. He looked at me, finally meeting my eyes. I searched his face, hoping to see a hint of regret, but all I saw was resolve. "It's not working, Em. We're not who we used to be. I think it's better if we end things now, while we can still be amicable for Molly's sake." Amicable? Was he serious? I clenched my fists, anger bubbling up from somewhere deep inside me. "This is something you say now? Here? While we're on vacation with our daughter?" He ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely distressed. I thought maybe this trip would change things. That maybe if we were together, away from everything else, I'd feel different. But I don't, Emily. I just don't. I could barely breathe. Every fiber of my being wanted to scream, to demand how he could say this, how he could do this to us, but Molly's laughter nearby kept me anchored. I couldn't make a scene, not here. Not with her so close. "When were you planning on telling me?" I hissed, my voice shaking with barely controlled rage. He looked down, guilt flashing in his eyes. I don't know. I was going to wait until we got back, but I couldn't. I couldn't pretend anymore. I turned away, my thoughts racing. How had I missed this? Had I been so wrapped up in our life, our routines, that I hadn't seen it? The silent dinners, the late nights at work, the excuses. They all came rushing back, little warning signs I'd brushed off as normal marriage struggles. After a long silence, I forced myself to speak. "Fine, Jake. You want a divorce? Go ahead. But I'm not staying here to watch you walk around, pretending everything's okay for the rest of this vacation." What do you mean?" he asked, his eyes widening. "I'm leaving. I'll go home. You can stay here with Molly. I'm not about to spend another second here, pretending to be the happy family you clearly don't want." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up a hand. "Save it, Jake. You've made your decision. Now, I'm making mine." That night, I packed my bags. I left a note for Molly, explaining as best as I could, without telling her the truth, that I had to go back early. Jake watched silently from the doorway, not daring to argue as I packed. As I closed my suitcase, I finally looked at him, really looked at him. "I hope this is what you want, Jake. I really do." He looked away, his jaw tight, and I left before he could respond. The flight home was a blur. I barely registered anything around me, my thoughts consumed by a swirl of anger, sadness, and disbelief. When I finally arrived home, the emptiness of the house hit me like a wave. The silence was deafening. Over the next few days, I busied myself with anything. Cleaning, working, walking. Anything to keep my mind from spiraling. Every time my phone buzzed with a message from Jake, I ignored it. What could he possibly have to say? But he kept calling. Every day, multiple times a day. At first, it was just texts. "Hey, just checking in. Can we talk? Emily, please call me back." I didn't answer. I didn't want to. He'd made his decision, he could live with it. But then he started calling, his name flashing on my screen so often it became a constant presence. Finally, after a week of dodging him, I picked up. "What do you want, Jake?" I snapped, the frustration I'd been holding back bubbling to the surface. There was a pause on the other end. Then, his voice, softer than I'd ever heard it. I wanted to apologize, Emily. I shouldn't have blindsided you like that. I don't know what I was thinking." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tightly. "It's a bit late for that, don't you think?" "I know," he said quickly, almost desperately. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me. I need to talk to you. Please." Against my better judgment, I agreed. When Jake came to the house, he looked different. There was something raw, almost vulnerable in his face, a look I'd never seen before. I folded my arms, bracing myself. "Well?" I asked, my tone sharper than intended. He sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't even know where to start. I think I just panicked, Emily. I felt like we were drifting apart, and instead of trying to fix it, I thought ending things would be easier." I scoffed. "Easier? For who? Certainly not for me or for Molly." His face twisted in pain. I know. I messed up. I'm sorry, Em. I don't want a divorce. I don't want to lose you." I blinked, stunned. After everything, after ripping my heart out and walking away, he wanted me to take him back? "Do you have any idea what you put me through, Jake?" My voice shook with anger. "You said you wanted a divorce. You left me standing on a beach, alone and heartbroken, while our daughter played a few feet away. Do you realize how cruel that was?" He looked down, visibly ashamed. "I know. I was selfish. I guess I thought you'd be better off without me." "Oh, don't you dare spin this as some kind of noble sacrifice," I snapped. "You didn't do this for me. You did this for yourself." He swallowed, looking like he might break down at any moment. "You're right. I was a coward. But I'm here now, and I want to make it right." I stared at him, unsure of what to do with this new side of Jake. The man standing in front of me seemed so different from the one who had told me he wanted a divorce just days ago. His eyes were filled with regret, but how could I trust him again? "You really think you can just fix this, Jake?" I said, my voice trembling. "Just like that? After everything? After you told me you wanted to leave me? You think a few apologies and promises are going to undo all of the hurt?" He stepped forward, his voice cracking with emotion. "No. I know it's not that simple. But I'm not asking for forgiveness right away. I need you to know that I see how wrong I was. And I don't want to lose you, Em. Not like this. Not after everything we've built." I shook my head, my emotions a whirlwind. "You don't even realize how much you've shaken me, Jake. I don't even know who you are anymore. The man I married would never have just given up on us like that." He looked down at his hands, visibly struggling with guilt. "I know. I didn't handle this the right way. I should have talked to you, I should have told you how I was feeling instead of running away. But I didn't. I was scared. And that's on me." "You were scared?" I repeated, incredulity lacing my voice. Scared of what? Us? Our family? Scared of failing, I guess. He let out a shaky breath. I've been so focused on work, on trying to make everything perfect, that I forgot about the most important part of my life. You. Molly. Us. And when things started feeling off, I didn't know how to fix it, so I thought maybe the easiest way out would be to just give up. I closed my eyes, biting back the tears. I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tear him apart for what he'd put me through. But instead, I just stood there, silent, trying to process everything he'd just said. So what do you expect from me now, Jake? I finally asked, my voice small and hesitant. Do you expect me to just forgive you and pretend like nothing happened? He shook his head, his voice pleading. No. I don't expect you to forgive me just like that. I know it's going to take time. But I want to show you that I can change. That I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this right. To make us right. And how do you plan on doing that? I asked, my arms crossed tightly over my chest. What do you want me to do? Move back in with you? Act like everything is fine? No. Not at all. He took another step forward, closing the distance between us. I don't expect you to act like nothing happened. I just want the chance to prove myself to you. I'm willing to go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. I just need you to believe that I'm committed to making this work. My heart ached at his words. This was the Jake I had married, the man who would do anything for our family, the one who would fight for us. But how could I trust him again after everything he'd done? You did fight for us, Jake. But it wasn't enough, was it? I asked, my voice breaking. You gave up. You didn't even try. I know. And I regret that more than anything. I wasn't thinking clearly, and I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. But I can't go back and undo that. All I can do now is try to be better, try to show you that I'm willing to fight for us again. I looked at him, my eyes scanning his face. There was no doubt in my mind that he was sincere, that he truly regretted his actions. But sincerity didn't erase the pain, didn't heal the wounds he had caused. I need time, Jake, I said softly. I need time to figure out what I want. What we want. You can't expect me to just fall back into this right away. I know, he whispered. I'm not asking for that. I just want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to fight for you, Emily. For our family. The words hit me like a tidal wave, and for the first time since that horrible conversation on the beach, I felt something shift inside me. A part of me wanted to believe him, to hope that this was the beginning of something new. But another part of me was terrified. Terrified of being hurt again, of opening myself up to the possibility of more pain. Jake stood there, waiting for my response, his eyes full of hope. But I couldn't give him an answer right then. Not when I was so torn. I need space, Jake, I said quietly. I need to think. I need to figure out if this is something I can even try to fix. Because right now, I'm not sure I can. His face fell, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of defeat in his eyes. But he nodded, his voice slow and sincere. I understand. I'll give you all the space you need. But please know that I'm not going to give up. I love you, Emily. I love our family. And I'll do whatever it takes to prove that to you. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. I'll think about it, Jake. I promise. But I can't promise anything more right now. He gave me one last look, his face soft with regret, before he turned and walked toward the door. Just before he left, he turned back. Take care of yourself, Emily. And take care of Molly. I'll be here, when you're ready to talk. And with that, he was gone. The days that followed were a blur. I went through the motions of daily life, taking care of Molly, dealing with work, but every moment felt overshadowed by the heaviness of Jack's words. He kept texting, kept calling, kept reaching out, but I kept my distance. I needed time, More time than I could explain. I thought about what Jake had said. His promise to change, to fight for us. Part of me wanted to believe him. After all, we had shared so much, the good and the bad, the memories of our early years, the struggles, the laughter, the little things that had kept us going. How could I just throw that away? But another part of me wondered if it was too late. If his actions had already spoken louder than any words ever could. And then, one evening, as I was sitting on the porch watching Molly play in the yard, my phone buzzed again. I glanced at it. It was a message from Jake. "I know you're still processing everything, but I just wanted to remind you that I'm here. Whenever you're ready. I'm not going anywhere. I love you." I stared at the message, feeling a weight in my chest. My mind was a war zone of emotions, pulling me in every direction. What did I want? What did we need? Could I ever trust him again? I didn't respond immediately. I couldn't. But as I sat there, I realized something important. I wasn't ready to give up on us just yet. Maybe we had a chance. Maybe, just maybe, there was hope for us after all.